Hi everyone, Anunnaki here. So today's video topic is about politics and why the scientific method is something that should be used in politics from here on forward, or just forever. See, when it comes to politics, especially when it comes to governments, they do things, or more so governments, do things on a whim, even if it doesn't make any objective sense. It doesn't work long term, and or it's just really stupid, or just terrible for the taxpayers and good for the government or special interests. Things can change on a whims, right? So science and the scientific method, which is a procedure that you know uses measurement, experiments, testing, different hypotheses to discover why things are the way they are. And through this method, it brings the facts of reality, the facts of how things work, how things are, not just on a whims. I feel like changing it because I feel, again, I feel my emotions. The scientific method doesn't care about your emotions, it doesn't care what you think. It just is what it is, and that's it. Like evolution. Evolution just is what it is. There's nothing you can do or change about it. Matter is, it just is what it is. It doesn't change on a whims, or it doesn't change when someone has just feels, an emotion, or feels it's not fair, something. No, it doesn't. That's not how it works. So, we use mathematics and science together. They obviously together, they go both in science and together. You think, when you think logically and critically, you're applying a mathematical sense of thinking. You can see how 2 plus 2 equals 4. You get the point. However, in politics, this isn't used. And this is where the big divide comes in of right versus left, I find. You see, left-wing politics is a left-wing philosophy is a philosophy based on egalitarianism and a more emotional kind of feelings, right? Right-wing philosophy is more about the free market, more about capitalism, individual freedom. And right-wing philosophy is completely superior to left-wing philosophy. Left-wing philosophy, if used the scientific method, doesn't work. And why I say it doesn't work is because there have been testing of different types of civilizations throughout history, like communism, socialism, things that have been done a million times, and they always drastically fail. Capitalism, especially American capitalism, the little bits of capitalism that's still there, that are intact, have largely brought most of the advancement in society. The market has been the best thing for humanity. Governments slow things down. Governments are these big mob-like businesses that just gobble up taxpayers' monies at gunpoint. You see, and here's one example I'll use with why the scientific method should be used. So basically, you have the typical person's brought up their whole life, getting told in government school, getting told not to steal from other people, not to steal people's private property or stuff from their private property. Don't steal people's money. That's a big one too. It's illegal, but for the government, that's not illegal. And people will say, but taxes are good. However, though, taxes are not voluntary; they're involuntary. So, from a moral standpoint, yes, that is theft. And then people will try and argue saying, oh no, but it's for roads, and oh no, it's for this, but yeah, those the buts, but no, none of that matters. The buts and the ands don't matter. From a moral standpoint, a logical standpoint, taxation is theft in every sort of the way. There is no, you can say the buts in this, but that is a fact. That is a fact of reason. That taxation is theft from a moral standpoint. So that's just one of the many examples of the scientific method not being used in politics. It's used in science because, well, science is just describes what things are and how they are. It doesn't say, oh, but you can, on a whims, or it's actually this way. It's like, no, there's only one way. Like, like people saying gender isn't real. Gender is completely real. The scientific method has proven this. Sexual dimorphism, how species are, how females and females have literal physical differences. Cranial structure, our skeletons are quite different. I'm not even gonna go into that. Anyone with common sense and understands that gender is a very real thing, and not a figment of society or a social construct. Again, this is why left-wing politics or left-wing philosophy is extremely degenerate. It creates a wave of destruction everywhere it goes. It's leftism. People always try and say like, oh, I've heard people say this who don't understand politics or don't understand philosophy. Always say, oh, right and left wing politics, it's the same thing on a different coin. And no, it's not. Maybe neoconservatism is somehow the same, but as a leftist philosophy, but even then, it's not the same. They're completely different. They don't lead to the same societies. They lead to completely different societies and ways of thinking. That's just retarded, and it's just new age people or people who just don't understand what they're talking about for the most part. But you see, if the scientific method works so well at telling us how science works, why can't it work well when structuring out a society or structuring out a political society? Right, and people will say stuff like, "Oh, that'll lead to social Darwinism." Well, and then that leads to Nazism. Then the distinction is the problem with labeling social Darwinism as Nazism is basically saying Nazism was right, and that's so people need to make that distinction out of it. I've always told people you can't distinguish the two. You can't even distinguish social Darwinism because if you distinguish them, it means it's the same. I remember Richard Dawkins was saying something around that lines. He said something how, what's the exact quote here? I think it's, let me find it here, the exact quote. Richard Dawkins, on social Darwinism. Sorry, I sound a little quiet. I just, tired. It's been a long day. We need an anti-Darwinian society. That's one quote. There's more like it. He doesn't want to limit it. He thinks a Darwinian society would be extremely cruel, right? This is usually in the usual ways. It would be extremely cruel. If you read the book Selfish Gene, he talks about how how things are, how humans are naturally selfish because we're naturally altruistic. They're both kind of the same thing, and he thinks the more we understand evolution, the more we can stray away from living in a society like that, which I think is ridiculous. I don't think that's even possible. And the reason I say that's not possible is because again, evolution is something that is naturally is always with us. It cannot go away as long as we have some sort of biological. Not biological. As long as we have DNA, it doesn't go away. We're always gonna live by evolution. There'll always be some form of evolution. Species don't just stop evolving. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly growing. Just you having a baby is a form of evolving. The next evolution of a human. It doesn't stop. So this idea that social Darwinism is only equated to Nazism is just infactually incorrect. And if you were to use the scientific method, you would find, again, it's wrong. If you tried to base a society off of Darwinism, and a society off of Darwinism would really look something more like an anarcho-capitalist society, where you don't have government stepping in saying, hey, do this and this and this because we said so. How ironic is it that a school, you learn in school systems, if you even learn this in some schools, schools don't really teach you anything. You learn not to steal other people's money, yet the school system, education system steals people's money because it's taxation, again, right? You have to pay for these school systems. You pay them through your taxes. Free school, but it's through taxes, right? So the biggest hypocrites, right? And this is what I mean. In science, science doesn't have hypocrites, and if it does, it's explained through a logical way and through the scientific method, just how things are and how they work. And this needs to be done in politics and government. You know, not even in an anarcho-capitalist society. I'm not even advocating for that. You can have some sort of libertarian or you know, some like a monarchy or something that operates on this set of on this way. Yeah, that's it for me. I just want to make that quick little rant. I'll be making another video on this topic though, a little more. I'll definitely go a little more in depth. I just wanted to say that. All right, peace.